Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar on Goals Matter and Outcome Counts. Thank you all for joining us for this webinar today. And I'm Manali Vyas, your host today for this webinar. As you all know, this session will be of 45 minutes along with your Q&A session. This webinar is conducted by Synergita. Synergita is a cloud-based performance management software which not only automates to resolve all employee performance review pain points, but also enables employee engagement, employee training, and development through its unique features. The first presenter for today's session will be Mr. Balaji Palanidurai. Balaji is an independent strategy consultant focusing on innovation and growth consulting, leadership development, and incubating technology startups. He's advisor to Kaidoko, a NASCOM incubated edutech startup, and working on incubating Cube Difference, a creative design and marketing consultancy that innovates through alternatives. The second presenter for today's session will be Mr. Rajaraman Jayaraman. Raj is the global pre-sales head and has over 16 years of experience in HR information technology with software packages like SAP On-Prem, SAP SuccessFactors, and Synergita. The experience includes core HR functions, solution consulting, and pre-sales. Before handing over the control to Balaji, here are some housekeeping instructions that I would like to share with you all. All phones are set to mute. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat window located beside the presentation panel. We have received several questions from the residents which will be answered by the speaker during Q&A session. Also, we continue to collect questions during the session as we receive and will try to answer them during today's session. In case if you do not receive answers to your questions today, you will certainly receive answers via email shortly. Thank you for your participation and enjoy the session. Over to you, Balaji.
Thank you, Manali, and thank you. All right, thanks, Manali, and hello all. I see we have got some participants from different geographies, which is very interesting, and thank you for taking time to join this webinar. So today we have an interesting topic, and firstly I should thank Synergita for giving me this opportunity to share the thought process I had, and I've been following it for 20 plus years. So I was a goal-oriented person, like anybody else, and had some objectives to, I think in a simplistic term, wanted to become a director in a large MNC by the time I turned 40, and I'm glad to say I achieved that. And after that, I needed some motivation to kind of keep me going. Titles did not really make a big difference to me, but I wanted to do something which is different, so I'm on my entrepreneurial journey now. So I'll talk a little bit about that during the course of this webinar. So today we have three parts to the webinar. So what happens is, myself, a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about and setting goals. But in the process of chasing them, sometimes the purpose, the journey, and most importantly, the outcome is probably lost. So today we're going to try and see how we can put some changes, an alternate narrative to our kind of mindset to see how we can not only achieve the goals, but also the outcome and eventually the happiness. So there are three parts to this webinar. So we're going to talk about the current scenarios that we have in our industry and frameworks that are in place, more specifically the SMART system. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the emerging trends in employee engagement. And I'll introduce the SPAM framework that I'm going to talk about. SPAM is an acronym, but I'll probably hold expanding that till we get to that section. And the last one, I just wanted to share a little bit about my story and how I came up with the SPAM framework. And I've also taken some examples from the industry, real people who have achieved something similar, and share their stories, which probably will inspire you to probably try and follow this. So with that, let's get into the session. To kind of engage the audience, we have kind of got three polls. These are totally 6 questions to each in each section. Manali will be kind of launching that. And the first one is going to be, about yourself and how you feel taken care of yourself in the company, and how you have actually used in your standard framework to set your goals and objectives. So the poll will be open for 30 seconds to 45 seconds, and it's already up and running, I think. So just to get a view of how you feel working in this industry and how uh, you may benefit from a different approach. So that's the intention. So Manali will let us know once the poll is done. Seeing a good trend which is leaning towards the agree and maybe, which is good, which is actually interesting. And I read this morning there was a kind of a meme that came out. If there is not a strong S, then it's actually a strong no. So the people who are sitting in the maybe, either you have to tilt towards one of the other side, and hopefully by the end of the session, we will probably achieve that. All right. So thank you for doing that. So let's get into the investment part, right? So here is something I don't really have to talk too much about it, and I think the kind of the slide in front of you says it all. Uh, if you're employed, no matter where you're employed, your manager or a company will have to invest in your personal growth, right? As simple as that. Uh, most of the companies have started realizing this, and they do it. But when if you're on your own and in entrepreneurial journey, you yourself have to invest in your personal growth. That's the main part. So that actually explains the reason behind the first question in the poll. So if people who are kind of in the maybe section are probably, I'm just going to hold for a second. Looks like there is a technical glitch. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Looks like there was the first poll question was answered. The second probably did not get through. I think it is online now, and people have started responding to it as well. Very interesting. 70% have said that they do follow a structured framework, possibly a SMART or a similar one. Which makes our session quite interesting, and probably we can straightly go into the new session as well. But let's, I think Manali, that's a good feedback. We'll just close that. So let's go and find. I think everybody knows what SMART is with the 75%. Just for the people who have kind of said disagree, I'm making an assumption. If you're not aware of it, it's just an acronym which helps us to kind of define your goal, which is very specific to your business or your personal growth, something which is achievable within your resources that you have. I think you missed the first part. So SMART really stands for specific, achievable within your own resources, or something that can be allocated to you. T being timely, you just need to have a time frame in which you have to do it, and it has to be measurable, right? A KPI which probably doesn't result in a change in behavior is probably not worth measuring. So you need to have a measurable one, and more, it has to be realistic in the real world so that you can achieve it, right? So now that 75% have said they've kind of used it, so we'll straight away kind of go into the challenges we probably face in this kind of a framework. So good thing is it helps you to structure your thought process. it probably kind of pushes you a little bit to achieve a little bit more, gives you a sense of direction, and more specifically helps you to organize yourself to pursue the goal going forward. It could be a quarterly goal or it could be an annual one. If you're employed in a larger organization, it's probably an annual one with regular feedback sessions. It also kind of, once defined, it helps you to kind of increase the probability of actually meeting it. At least you have something toward the end of the year to track back and say whether I've done this or not, I think, which is very important. It certainly kind of makes you to think smarter, which is good. A goal that is written and executed is better than one that is still in your mind, right? But what happens is during that process, and I have some questions that were sent earlier as well, people struggle to kind of define all the 5 aspects of the SMART goal. And during the process, the whole quarter kind of goes away. And speaking to our senior colleagues in Synergita, and that experience shows that they have kind of sometimes goes into Q2 as well. I have personal experience where in certain years when there is some real going on, the goals for the organization takes a little bit longer than expected. So once that is done, I think the real challenge is to kind of motivate and inspire the employees to track the goals and achieve it. And this goes back to kind of the philosophical model and psychology around self-determination theory as well, right? So people need to be having the autonomy to follow those goals. It also needs to help them improve their skills and capabilities, and it has to be related to their personal growth. So do these goals really give the intrinsic motivation to pursue and achieve them towards the end of the year? Yeah, that's the challenge. So if I kind of break that down to the current scenario, right? So the iceberg, the more deeper it goes, the challenges are kind of difficult to define and unearth as well. So first thing is with the changing kind of business model and kind of agile approach that people are taking, things keep changing every quarter, right? And sometimes the vision and the values of the company are probably not aligned to that of the employees. Second, even though they kind of have the goals and finish it, achieve it, the actual outcome, the growth and the benefits they get from it, it kind of depends on the relative performance of the entire team. And sometimes you have to live on the mercy of the bell curve. And people who are in the IT industry are probably going to be very aware of what that is. And there are some companies who are trying to get away with it, but for a country of our size and the industry of our size in IT, we need something which will help us to get through that. I think the third and fourth are probably very important, and the rest of this webinar is going to be addressing that aspect, is understanding the personal aspiration of individuals and how that can be leveraged to motivate them to kind of align with the vision of the business and help achieve the success. During that process, they kind of are given the freedom to kind of pursue their personal growth. And eventually what happens is happiness, right? And there are some quotes that I've kind of got in the slide later, which you will actually see, which is going to be relating to these 4 challenges. So that's the 4 challenges. We'll try and cover each of them in the process. So the new thinking that is happening around the future of work is defined very well by this guy in his book in Hacking Work, Bill Jensen. So the more and more, if you're going to engage your employees' vision and incorporate that into your business model, the probability of achieving success is going to be higher, right? So that's kind of the theme, and we'll kind of get through that. So before we go into the next session and find the emerging trends, we got 2 questions that are going to be coming up, which are, one is related to yourself, and the second is how happy you are to kind of let the world know about yourself. So Manali, could we get the poll questions on? It's very interesting. This looks like the England and New Zealand match 50-50 split for the first one, agree and disagree. Interesting. So I think the tip I gave in between about If it is not a certain yes, it is a certain no is certainly falling in place. So people are taking one way or other. Thank you for doing that. Could we have the next question as well? So let me explain this one. The second one as well. So once you have got your achievement or aspiration, how comfortable will you be to kind of share that with the world? I think there was a question asked in the invites that was sent by Manali, is to see, is there a challenge with making your goals public? I certainly feel not. It actually motivates you to do more, right? So this is an interesting poll because we have got 15% who says yes, I would like to agree, and 25% saying maybe, and 60 odd saying disagree. So, well, this is really for you guys then. Let's see how we can kind of help you to kind of spam the world. Right. So, is the poll closed now? Excellent. So let's go into the session. So the swapping of the poll question back to the presentation is slightly a 15 to 20-second exercise. You should be seeing my screen now, right? So it is personal, right? So employee engagement is very personal, and what's defined there is the more and more you get your people personally involved in the success of the business, the higher the chance that they're going to be motivated and to continue to be in the business, right? So that's a personal is going to be a theme that is going on. So I'll come back to say what the spam thing is, right? So before we do that, and some of the companies are already taking up this employee engagement to the next level and coming up with some new ways of engaging them, with the Gen Z being very, very interested in visual kind of medium. There's a company called Mind Valley, which is motivating them through success stories, which is taken from the founder, and he's actually engaging the likes of Bill Gates to all the way from Jack Ma to the new entrepreneurs to kind of share the stories, which will help people to realize their own potential and take it forward. There's a project called Genome. Again, they've got their own method of unlocking the human performance. It is again a workshop-based 3 to 6 months exercise. They go through, take the people towards the journey and help them set up the goals and look for the new future. And then we have the standard ones where some companies have kind of given the 9 pillars. And if you see, you can't really see that the 9th one is all about personal growth and development, right? I think the point about freedom and happiness, right? So the leadership, there is a lot of focus in the industry now to make people happy, right? Which is good. I think companies should focus on that. But the real leadership is about how to kind of channelize the positive energy that comes out of this happiness and use that to the business benefit. But all this is good. But what I've seen is there are startups in the smaller organizations who are kind of readily able to kind of use the system and then benefit from it. But I'm not sure if it is scalable for larger organizations. And I've also seen a pattern where this is given as a reward for people who are already high performers. So what about the rest of the people? So the quest for something which is practical, scalable, and something that can be employee driven and relatively inexpensive for the company continues. So that's where the real thought process came in. And this is where I would like to share my thought process and the framework that I've come up with. It's all about personal growth. So spam has got a negative connotation, right? Even when I asked the poll question, majority of them were like not very keen to do the spam. But if it is something about yourself and it is positive story, why wouldn't you spam about it, right? So if you have a framework to define something that you will be very happy and proud to share, then I'm pretty sure that poll question, if I put it back again, will tilt towards the other side. So what is spam, right? So it's a simple hobby or interest that actually inspires the individual. For me, anything creative kind of inspires me. So I do a lot of writings. I do my blog. I'm very interested in photography. So all these things kind of inspire me to write some poems. And some of the people who are on this webinar knows that I've kind of taken an attempt and already have like 20 or 30 odd poems that I've written around happiness, success, etc., which I'll be very happy to share. It has to be personal to the individual's life and their growth, right? It's a personal growth as a mantra is going to come. Third, it has to be applicable. I mean, attainable is certainly on the smart side. Applicable is probably more relevant in this case. Whatever you try to do, it has to be applicable for your job or your personal life. And last but not the least, it has to be meaningful in the real world. Making money is one, but being meaningful is the second. So it might find that very simplistic, but when you actually start thinking about it, like the guy on the side is doing, and putting that into words, it took me almost 2 to 2.5 years to kind of understand this whole process. And I have come up with a model which I have kind of gone through, and I would like to share in the next few slides. So before I do that, you might be interested to know all these famous and hardworking public figures, they have a spam goal as well. They might not call it as a spam, but if you can kind of relate it to the framework I've said, that's exactly what it is. I mean, Chandrasekharan is a very known person. He came from a very small town, but as you probably know, he heads the Tata Sons. Now he's a keen runner, marathon runner, right? So he says most of his new ideas, etc., comes up when he runs, right? And he's famously quoted saying that people even call him as a long-distance thinker, which is very interesting. So, and this kind of directly applies to the business world as well, right? Oprah Winfrey is again somebody who has come up very hard in life, and she's got a wonderful media business. But her personal goal is to be a teacher, right? And the best way to learn something new is to teach, and that's the kind of mantra she's followed. And Richard Branson, the kind of businessman whose aspiration to settle in the moon and the galaxy is very adventurous, as you probably know. But he has got a business which is very, very flourishing, and he's probably got the least attrition rate in the UK in all his organization. So what kind of, so that's the kind of motivation you can get from your personal growth. Now, individually it is good, but what about the organization? And this was a question that we were kind of discussing with Synergita team as well. So our personal growth is great, but how does the organization and more specifically the HR department benefit from this one? Now, SPAM, I would probably boldly say, is a zero investment employee engagement program, right? All you need is to empower your managers with this framework and add a personal goal in addition to your existing smart objectives, and give a weightage of maybe even 10% to it, which will motivate the employees to have that weekly, monthly discussion, which probably doesn't happen now. Like I said earlier, the goals which set in the early part of the year get discussed only again towards the end of the year when you do your performance appraisal. Now, having the personal growth in there puts a stake in for the employees to kind of follow up their managers and set that meeting to have that discussion. Very, very important. This also gives the employees the freedom to pursue an interest, and if they know that is going to count towards the performance, it's only in the best interest that they pursue that. Now, managers, in addition to kind of doing their appraisals, they also get to know the team better, and that during that process will find some new strengths and capabilities that the team may have, which might otherwise not be very visible. And last, it will also create a culture of collaboration. So what if the team of 10 people, 2 of them have got interest in sustainability and doing cleaning up lakes, they are going to be working together on a weekend. And during the process, they will discuss work at some point in time, which they will come back and apply it in the Monday morning. So critical thinking, creativity is just the outcome from there, right? So that's the benefit for the organization. So let's see how it actually helps the personal and the business goals as well. Now, this is a 2x2 framework that I have kind of put in place to help you understand that if a goal that is simple and meaningful, if it's perceived and it is still personal and applicable, can eventually become sophisticated, and people will be willing to engage you to kind of provide that as a service, which you can monetize towards the in the future if you want to. Now, monetization can happen in two ways. You can make money out of it, or you can get a better role or a position in the same company as well. So let's take that hobby and interest. If somebody who's kind of business analyst, who's come fresh from the college, done his BE and MBA, and let's say if they have an interest in doing blogs and understanding about the market scenarios, and they're probably put in a project which is related to manufacturing. This kind of, they are not going to be very interested to kind of write about manufacturing. But if you still allow them to understand the industry mechanics or how the financial sector is going to impact the manufacturing and write some blogs about it, they are probably going to be more interested. So during that process, they will get to know the macro environment, and which the additional information they gain can help them to have a more informed discussion with the clients when they have the meetings, which again builds the rapport and the interest, right? So if they pursue that over a period of time, it could become, they could become very sophisticated in terms of writing articles in journals, which can eventually be published in the in the industry articles as well. So it is still meaningful, which will help them to grow in their role in the organization. Now, let's say the one of the complaints that keep coming is, I've done everything, but I still not got a increment towards the end of the year, right? So earning can happen in multiple ways. One is your source of income that is given for your 9 hours, etc. you put in work. Now, if you have the skill and you are able to kind of apply that in the balance of the hours in the day, you could get some extra income which will complement, and then it's again an earning, right? So let's say if you like the boss, like the company, but not the salary, you may want to kind of look at a secondary source of income as well. At certain point in time, when the sophistication is high and you are looking at monetizing that, you may want to launch a kind of a portal that talks about finance and manufacturing industry, for example, right? It could be a startup, or you can look at an alternative role within the organization and kind of pitch for that position. So that's kind of the route. So I know that's theory. What I wanted to do is to see how this can be applied for individuals, and I've got some stories to share, and that'll be the third part. But before we go that, I would like and encourage you to start thinking about it. This company already kind of does that, mostly in the Western culture. This is picked up a lot. I would like each of you to see your picture in there and see what is your next. You may already have a professional goal, but try and see if you can have a personal goal as well. In this case, for Netra Jerry, she wants to be an agile transformation specialist, but she also got a goal to win the next softball tournament. It might sound which is unrelated, but there are going to be certain skills that will gain on the field, which might be directly applied to the agile pattern. So if you know, I think the word Scrum actually comes from baseball, right? So that's later. So have that in the back of your mind, and by the end of the session, if you have any questions, you can ask. So before we go to the third and the final section, let's understand your appetite for change and your general perspective on the industry as well. So Manali is going to launch that poll, and let's see what you think. Interesting. 90 odd people are ready for change, and which is even better because we have got almost 30% more participants in the forum now, which is an interesting mix. So on the count of 5, we will close that poll. So the next one, which is going to come, and let's see. There's no politics in that question, but just get a feel of your view on the industry and our economy as such. That's fluctuation like a trade market now. So the answers are still coming through, and it's in the maybe section, right? Okay, so let's see if we can take that as a snapshot view. We have about 30% who thinks we will achieve that. About 50% thinks it's a maybe, and 20% disagree, which is fine. But the good thing is, if you are ready to change, and if you are able to cascade that positive energy, we may probably achieve that. So we will get into the last section and take it from there. Now, the $1,000,000 question you will have is, we already have smarts of the world, etc. Why this new spam now coming into picture? Will it work? And most importantly, will it be effective, right? I can share my personal story, but I certainly don't want to kind of convince you that that is the way to go. But if I manage to get you confused, that's still a kind of halfway for me, because you will go and find some clarity and seek answers, and during that process, you will probably get convinced, right? Or you may probably come up with a new idea that you would like to share with us. But that's a Dilbert quote, by the way, right? So now is my 3 minutes to frame. We're going to tell a little bit about my spam story, right? Like I said, my ambition was to be a director by the turn age of 40, which I achieved probably 2 years later. And at that point in time, I wanted something very interesting. And I was traveling to France for a leadership training course. And it was on the Emirates flight. And in the flight, there was a thing going about how Dubai has got a Ministry of Happiness. And the minister was talking about it and said, if you are able to address the happiness of people, the productivity of the nation will go up by 3%. And they were actually setting up the whole department under her to do that. And that kind of made me thinking. By the time I landed in Paris, I said, you know what, I would like to also pursue that as a goal. And for me, happiness, as I've defined on the right side, success is your ability to let go and harness happiness in the end. It can be an argument, it could be a business deal, etc. But if you think that you're not there, it's probably better to let go and then come back stronger, right? So that's my theory. That's an extract from my poem I wrote, Beauty of Happiness. You can find it on my personal blog. So coming back to the question about should I make it public or not, right? So on the way back from Paris, fortunately, I bumped into the COO of our organization, Ashwin Yadi, who's now the CEO, and I explained to him about this thing, and he was very glad and said, "Look, we already have a chief fund officer. Why don't you work with him to try and make and incorporate your goals?" Right? Then I realized at that point I was still kind of going behind a title. I wanted a chief happiness officer title, which I didn't get. So, but there was nothing stopping me to making it public. So I included happiness ambassador in my signature. And you wouldn't believe the type of response I used to get. And people thought that was actually a formal role with some KPIs to be achieved. But that's just a start. In 2017, I had that until I resigned in September 2018. I still had that in the last signature as well. Now, what that actually made me to do is pursue my interest in the personal blogging and poetry space, which led to some speaking engagements. I was speaking a lot of engineering colleges, and I was doing some pro bono consulting. And by 2018, what I started as an email signature as self-proclaimed happiness ambassador was kind of acknowledged by my peers and colleagues. On my birthday cake, there was happiness ambassador, and then colleagues who used to respond kind of used to say, hey, you bring in a lot of positive energy and we are able to kind of focus more in our work, and you should continue doing that. Now, at a point around mid 2018, I started kind of getting approaches from some startups to see if I can mentor them, which I started doing. And as you've probably seen in my profile, I've actually joined one of those startups who are working in the education space using AI and ML to kind of incorporate psychology back into the education space. Now, that actually motivated and said, look, there are a lot of people to kind of address the problems of the Fortune 500 companies. What about the MSMEs and startups in India? So I took a plunge. So I let go of my nice paycheck and then started my entrepreneurial journey. And I should say it has been a challenging few months, but I've kind of found my calling and the clients as well. And we have started working on it. So that's kind of the journey, and you can map it to yourself. And if you are able to kind of persevere onto your personal goals, which might be simple and if it is meaningful at the start, be at it, work at it, and once it becomes sophisticated, you will get an opportunity to monetize it. Who knows? You could be a next unicorn in the industry. So that's my story. Now I don't want to stop there. I showed some public figures, of large corporates. This is applicable in our day-to-day life as well. So went to LinkedIn, did some research, and colleagues from Synergita helped me here as well. And here are some people who are still working. So if I take the example of Sunil Singh, who used to work with me in Capgemini, I think he still is. He had an aspiration to become an IAS officer, but I think age and time did not help him to do that. But now what he does is he volunteers and does IAS coaching in an academy, right? So he finds 2 to 3 hours in a day to try and help people who are pursuing that as a goal. And during the process, he learns a lot of things. And I think he's one of those guys who got fast tracked and is already a senior manager within 7 years of the. Well, I think Neha Jha is finding some interest in music, which I didn't know. She had been kind of writing some articles about it in LinkedIn, and hopefully wants to be in a band at some point in time. Which Anish Batra on the right hand side is the co-founder of the startup I work with, Kaidoko. He's fresh from college. He's kind of pitching in his own money. Now he's a pretty good drummer and he's got his own band and he earns to kind of fund his startup, right? So that's kind of the impact of personal aspirations can have. Clement is a director in Capgemini, is a high performer again, but he had a lot of interest in heritage and he started doing some research around the Chola kings. And side by side, he started kind of creating some tours. And after a year and a half, now he's got a successful startup. It's called Heritage Inspired. And whatever he finds, he kind of shares that in the client meetings that he has from the US and the Southeast Asia, which kind of creates additional rapport, right? So that's kind of the secondary income source. Now, Jyoti Chamoli works for Genpact. I spoke to her and looks like she's been doing volunteering for last 9 years. She started as a business analyst. Now she heads up some of the CSR activities. So, and I think the interesting part she said about volunteering is that 8 years back, when the company used to call for volunteers, she was probably the only one in the room. And now she's leading some of the large CSR activities globally, right? So, and she's moved up and she's taken up that as a full-time role. Chandra is a marketing specialist in Capgemini, and I've seen a lot of his blogs and social causes as well. So that's kind of having a huge impact and learning about the people. He's kind of gone and specialized in change management, right? Got a certification and kind of got a higher role. And then on the right hand side, we have two people who are, Sandhya is a good friend of mine, and she was a marketing specialist in Informatica. Then she had a calling in coaching, and she did a lot of traveling, and now she has got a very successful coaching, leadership coaching venture called Chapter 2 Coaching, right? So these were things that they were pursuing while they were working as well, which has led them to take that as a full-time career, and they're monetizing it. And the last one is Chandresh Thakkar. It's an oddball one. I remember working with him as well. He's a project manager, but he was into spirituality, etc. And recently I found he's actually authored a book on project management and spirituality, how yoga can help you become a good project manager, right? I didn't even think about that, marrying those two. So those are kind of the stories that I would want to share. Look them up on LinkedIn, connect with them, help understand how they did what they did. And I'm pretty sure you will find your calling and your personal goals, the STEM goals. So with that, I would like to summarize. So engaging, if there are people who are managers and directors of the organization attending this call, engage with your employees' vision, right? And the future of the work and the workplace is going to be defined by that. Gen Z is a different beast to handle. Now, so when you say engage, you kind of get to know the personal aspirations as well, and try and see if you can incorporate them as a formal goal. And pretty sure Synergita colleagues have got an excellent tool. I think Raj will be talking about it afterwards, where you can flexibly add new goals and add your own weightage and track it. I will let that to be kind of shared by Raj. Now, the most important thing and where the zero investment comes from is empowering your managers. Create a culture of coaching, right? Right. So there are a lot of new portals that are coming up where they are facilitating mentoring from the desks, right? You can now have somebody in the US or in Japan as your mentor to kind of help you through your process. It doesn't have to be necessarily from the same organization. Try and get creative, get out of your desk and collaborate in the open. Get some experiential learning. That is probably going to be another key as well. And last but not the least, any small success you have, reward yourself, right? It can be personal or professional. And every motivation you get with that reward will help you to go to the next step. So you do need something to direct you, which the smart of the world can do, and then to kind of help that smart goal to be achieved, you need some personal motivation and inspiration, which I think SPAM can enable. With that, I would like to wrap up my part of this webinar, and once again thank Manali and Raj for giving me this opportunity. And then we will pass it on to Raj to share how they are going to take this new thought leadership and see how we can implement within Aspire Systems and Synergita. Over to you, Raj.
Thank you so much, Balaji. I would hand over the control to Raj to take this further. Raj, over to you.
Thank you, Manali, and thank you, Balaji, for the fantastic session on spamming the world with my happiness. That was really wow. So, so it was quite exciting listening to Balaji. Yeah, so Synergita, to give you a brief overview, Synergita is a continuous feedback-based employee performance engagement, management, and development software, which is pretty easy to use as well as simple to configure. And we have got a lot of technical and non-technical customers who are all using this system across the globe by this time successfully. And let's see how Synergita will help in achieving this goals management, primarily with regards to the smart or on the spamming the goals. So we'll see these factors. So, people magic. So what we believe in Synergita is that, so when the organizations remove the hurdles or the performance bottlenecks for the employees and in a creative manner, engaging the employees as well as nurturing them will help them to set up extraordinary culture, which is going to be very much friendly and nice atmosphere where the individual employees they can unleash their potential, whereby they will be setting new standards at par with the global standards, and that will be creating wonders. So this is what we call as people magic. As far as Synergita is concerned, we help the organizations, say, starting with their direction setting, which is the goals management, and then on a continuous basis, how am I progressing, and how am I achieving the goals? What are the periodical check-in that I have been doing, and do you have any performance issues? So do you have any coach or mentoring person helping me out in achieving those targets? So this is the digital platform whereby you can have all these questions addressed, starting with goals management, continuous feedback, performance reviews, be it a 360-degree feedback or a normal performance feedback. And then you can also have surveys conducted, like your engagement surveys, be it employee satisfaction survey or onboarding survey. You can host any of those surveys in the system, and you can also have the e-communication and core value rating done in the system. So coming on to the spam concept in Synergita, how are we helping the organization with regard to the goals part of it? Primarily, when you think of the goals management, many organizations they neither have a continuous tracking or monitoring on those goals, or they're having a continuous feedback sessions or continuous monitoring sessions. So that was the finding, and based on which, so we came up with these components called continuous feedback framework and goals management. Helping the organizations first of all to set up goals. The employee or the manager or even the administrator, they can set the goals, and the goals have got much more attributes like weightage, and you can also record the outcome of it. As Balaji mentioned, the weightage. So to what extent you are going to weigh between your professional and personal objectives. So to what extent you can allocate the weightage basically. So system has got the provisioning to classify the allocation. For example, generally we have say 60% KRA and 30% competencies, and then remaining 10% you may have for your spam or the personal goals, right? So it depends on the organization. You may have even changed the weightage. So the system has got all these provisioning in place, whereby even the outcome can be recorded on a regular basis, be it a weekly or fortnightly or a monthly basis. The employees can very well record what is the amount of achievement he has or she has done on a particular goal. And how are we communicating this goal? Fine. Now that we have set up the goal, do you have the provisioning for checking these goals on a regular basis, or do you have my own screen where I can see these goals, and can I measure myself against those standards or expectations? Yes, you have this goals enabled in your employee self-service screen, and even you can have a one-on-one discussion whereby the goals can be discussed, and it can be even normalized, for example with regard to the weightage or target date or targets. So all those things can be executed and recorded in the system. And then the key part comes into picture, which is the coaching or mentoring sessions with regard to the continuous feedback dimension. So on an ongoing basis, you can conduct these kind of discussions or communication with the employee, and you can record those things, which will be enabled for your year-end review time. You can refer this continuous feedback screens so that you don't have to remember anything. You can refer those factors for your final review time. And parallelly, we also do have the provisioning for rewards and recognition platform, which is available in the system. So all these things enable the organizations to automatically remove the performance bottlenecks where the employees achieve people magic. So that's about the summary, and over to you, Manali.
Thank you so much, Raj. Now we are opening the window for question answers. Attendees can start typing in their questions, sending to us. Meanwhile, Balaji would like to answer the questions we received earlier. So, Balaji, first question was, by making goals public and keeping them in front of everyone, do you think it will give clear objective?
Yeah, that's a valid question, and I think during the presentation I tried to answer that. A goal which is not public is probably not going to give you that intrinsic motivation to start achieving it. But people have their own preferences. Business objectives obviously can and needs to be communicated to the entire team to be aware of it. Personal objectives and growth, you can have the option to not share it, but I would seriously encourage people to get up, make it public, so that they can get the motivation to do it. For example, when I was doing my MBA, my friend used to say, "Why don't you just tell me every week what you have achieved in your MBA?" So for that itself, I mean, when I have to go and face him on a Sunday, I will make sure that I've done some progress in my MBA assignments and kind of share it, and eventually I achieve my diploma. Yeah.
Thank you. Another one, Balaji. Do you suggest a mix of carrot and stick approach for nudging the employees to achieve the target?
I think this already happens in our environment, but I think the key is to make it more consistent across the board so that we don't see questions and objections raised about partiality. So when you have your the carrot part, the stick, if you want to relate that to a smart, which is going to eventually decide your paycheck, can be complemented with spam, which is a carrot. Uh, is certainly a mix which will nudge the employees and kind of get them to achieve it, right? So it is kind of a mix. The whole point is making it formal. Try and record that in the system so that there are no kind of discrepancies later point in time.
Okay. So there is one question: how to set a goal for data analysis staff in survey-related department?
Which is data analysis staff and survey related departments. I think the goal there is probably going to try and get the reach, right? First thing is how many people with the technology there, we could certainly do it. So when we started the Synergita webinar session, I was kind of curious to see how many people it will actually eventually reach. And I was proud to see that 2,000 people have actually viewed that post this morning. So which is a good thing. But the outcome was, are any people out of that going to turn up for this session? And it was good to see close to 40 odd people who joined in the initial session. I see some 22 still on. So which is the outcome. So that's kind of kind of the metrics you can involve for those kind of a survey-based system. Happy to take that offline and kind of work with that person who has asked the question to help them further.
Okay, another question: how do you enable managers to set SMART goals? We have conducted a lot of workshops and trainings, but we still see goals which are not SMART.
Give them a spam goal. So I think Raj kind of touched upon this. It's kind of continuous coaching and sessions. So it's not very easy to set smart goals, and I will admit that because I've had challenging discussions with my line managers at some point in time. If it is specific, it might not be realistic. If it was realistic, it was not specific. It is very difficult. So it all comes down to the vision of the company and what are the targets they have got, and then making it simple enough for the low-level employees to understand lies in the hands of the managers. So you empower them with that information and kind of make them aware of how these goals are actually going to translate into new business or goals that we've set for the organization. So empowering them with additional information, giving them insights along the way, it could be monthly, quarterly, that will help them to kind of make sure they understand the importance of having a smart goal.
Okay, I think that answers another question as well. One person asked how to make staff understand importance of goals or targets on daily basis.
Communication, I think
Yeah.
it's a straightforward answer there.
Exactly. So, what part technology plays in helping us achieving our goals, Balaji?
For me, on a personal view, if you see my LinkedIn post, I believe in elevating human potential, right? So people are capable of doing what technology cannot do, and it's the people who actually code the technology part that makes it happen, right? So technology is an enabler. So that's how I would see it. But not having that is also a handicap. So it's great to have companies like Synergita coming up and giving something handy on your mobile, which will help them give that nudge, right? So we are all humans. We need some kind of a nudge. Still, there are people who wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning using an alarm, right? So until your body clock gets set, you may need to have technology to help you through this process as well.
Correct. Well, there's still a few more questions, but we are running out of time.
Maybe the last one last we can do.
Okay, sure. So here it goes. Is there any right time to set the goals? If yes, then when? If no, then why?
Personal goals, there is no right time. You can set any time you want. Business professional goals will have to go through the cycle that they have for the business, right? But the more important thing is not setting the goal, it's actually pursuing it and achieving the outcome. I think that was a good question to wrap it up as well.
Great. So, guys, we'll wrap up this session, and whoever's questions are not answered, we'll definitely send through email. And I would like to thank Balaji and Raj for sharing the experience. Balaji, thank you so much for taking out time and coming here and doing this session for us. And thank you, Raj, for sharing your experience as well. Thank you guys for joining us for this session. If you still have any questions, you can definitely feel free to send it at info@synergita.com, and we'll be glad to answer them. And hope you all enjoyed the session, had an informative one. So thank you all once again for joining. And this is Manali signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Manali. Bye.